with you. You thought that God would show up and rescue you, but somehow things just fizzled out. The rescue didn't come. Life has a way of dismantling our expectations of God. The marriage doesn't last. The kids don't make all the choices we hoped they would. We get old and achy. It's hard to get out of bed. Our career doesn't go as planned. And we didn't expect that life would go like this. We didn't think that this was what God's presence in our life would look like. Well, maybe it isn't that the Messiah hasn't shown up. Maybe it's that our expectations of him need to be shattered. So I ask you this morning, if you're carrying disillusionment and disappointment, can you just follow this week into Good Friday and see what might happen, where God might show up? Or maybe the question for you this morning is, what does power look like to you? Who are you impressed by? Are you impressed by those who are succeeding at life through a show of force? They tell people what to do. They manipulate people. They bully their way. They argue and convince. And does what impresses you keep you from exercising power in the way that we are called to do so? Because what do we learn about how Jesus exercises power? He empties himself. He lays down his life. He does not coerce or manipulate. And so what titles and roles do you have that you could redefine by exercising your power differently? Are you a boss? Fill that title with new meaning. Exercise that role in the way of Jesus, not by commanding, but by going before people, doing it first. Are you a parent? Exercise that role as Jesus would, not by controlling, but by how you love and let go, how you trust and encourage. Are you a coach? Are you a teacher? Do you have a team under you? Do you have people who look to you for guidance? Lead without coercion and without posturing. Think about how you can defy the expectations of your role by the way that you use your power. I wonder what old systems we hold tight of that we maybe need to let go. What rituals do we practice that keep us focused on keeping the people out instead of inviting people in? Do we welcome those who God is welcoming? We could explore this in lots of ways in how we live our lives outside of church, but how do we practice this in church? Does our language, our attitude, do our expectations of people create barriers that keep others from experiencing the loving and transforming presence of God? And here's a little clue that I often use with myself to tell me where I'm focusing on walls instead of the presence. Where do I use us and them language? You know, those people. That's always a clue that maybe God has a barrier he wants to take down. The second question is this: would we recognize the presence of Jesus in our midst? I was having a conversation with one of my boys the other day, and we were kind of just joking about it, but he said to me, "Mom, do you think we'd even know Jesus if he showed up? And I wonder if we want to start recognizing Jesus, if maybe the answer is to spend more time with people who need welcome. And to take it a step further, I wonder if the secret is this, that in welcoming the outsiders, Jesus was an outsider, the shoeless, the hungry, the ones who need welcome, are we actually welcoming Jesus? Are we welcoming the presence? So this is our new ritual, to keep releasing everything to God in prayer and to keep canceling the scores that we keep against one another through forgiveness. It's like breathing in and out. Pray and forgive. In and out. Pray and forgive. Open and release. We don't live into and show God's presence by making rules and building walls. The temple time is over. We live in God's presence through breathing in and breathing out, through prayer and forgiveness. So, where do you need to practice prayer? And where do you need to practice forgiveness? Where do you need to open up to God? Mark has not let the pressure off since chapter 8 on his disciples saying, God wants all of it. So, what are you holding back? Is there some shameful episode in your past that you have put in a box and placed in a chest and locked and then dug a deep hole in a swamp and put it down there and covered it over, and you have forgotten about it, sort of, and nobody knows about it? God wants that part. Sometimes I think that we think the hardest things to give up are the things that we cherish, and those are really hard to give up. But I think even harder are our secrets. Drain the swamp, dig up the hole, open it up to God. Let God in. Because you know what? I bet he had that very shameful thing in mind when he died. And he didn't call the angels to stop the process because your shameful thing was just one thing too many. He actually took on that thing and took on the shame of that thing and killed it so that you could be free. So don't be afraid. Start to open that up to God. I'm not saying that's going to be instantaneous. It might be a long road and it might be painful, but I think you can be free. Who do you need to forgive? Jesus says some really hard words here about forgiveness, right? He says, if you don't forgive, God doesn't forgive you. And that seems really harsh until we remember that it's about breathing in and breathing out. If you don't forgive, you're not breathing out, and you stop the process and you can't breathe in. They're two sides of the same coin, right? Breathe in and out. They belong together. One does not happen without the other. Forgiving is the ultimate act of love. It's what Jesus did for the world, and it's how he asks us to practice his presence. There is nothing more astounding than forgiveness, to give it or to receive it. It's a miracle. And I don't say that glibly because I know that forgiveness is not easy. It takes time and practice, and it requires facing into our own and into others' pain. Forgiveness is painful because it involves the death of expectations and hopes. It's a crucifixion, but death comes before resurrection. So do you see where Palm Sunday is leading us? Can you see the hints? In the old order, shameful things stay buried. The expectations and hopes that we crucify stay dead. But in the new order, well, it's only Palm Sunday. We still have to travel through Holy Week, through Good Friday. But I wonder what might happen if we traveled through the whole week, right till Sunday. I wonder what might happen then.